beautiful people, welcome back again to the channel. Today we are going to be talking about a very delicate topic, a topic I've shied away from for the longest time since I moved here, even before I moved here. However, I feel like I can say a thing or two about it right now. So yeah, from the title you already know we're going to be talking about racism here in Australia. About 2 weeks ago, somebody messaged me on my YouTube page here, and the person was like, "Hi Deo, how is racism in Australia and how do you deal with it?" Initially I just answered, "Oh, it's fine, blah blah blah." But I thought, look, this is not the first time somebody's asking me this question. And as an immigrant myself, I understand the importance of knowing about a country, especially when it comes to racism, before you move to that country. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna do a sit down video and address the big elephant in the room. So sit back and let's talk about racism in Australia. Firstly, I would like to say that whatever I say in this video is my opinion, my experience, and this does not remove the fact that your experience in Australia is valid, okay? But we all can share our own experience without making the other person feel like their own experience is not valid. So your experience is valid and my experience is valid, okay? So if you have a similar experience or even a different experience, please leave it under the comment section politely or the best way you can, and I'd love to read from you as well to hear your view. I'll start by saying, when it comes to racism in Australia, I personally, being honest, I have never experienced racism. Now, I know sometimes people will say, oh, it's subtle, but to the best of my knowledge, I have experienced subtle racism. I've experienced a racism to my face, like it was just so clear that it was racist comment. So I have experienced all that, but not here in Australia, okay? I have lived here in Australia since September last year, and up to now I haven't experienced any form of racism. Now I'd like to state that the location where I am in Australia is actually playing a big factor towards the reason why I haven't experienced racism. Now if I want to go back in time, looking at the history of Australia, I would not be going into detail with that because that is a topic that stimulates loads of people and it causes loads of people to have trauma and all that. So I wouldn't be doing that on my page or my video here. But if you are so interested, please go on Google and just type the history of Australia, how Australia came about, the first settlers of Australia. Like, just Google those things and read and just catch up by yourself. But I don't want to go into details with that because it causes so much trauma to loads of people, so I don't want to do that. But if you go back in the history of Australia, you get an idea on how Australia began and how racism is here in Australia. But for the purpose of this video, I'm going to be talking about racism from my point of view as a person of color from an African descendant, okay? Racism is here. I won't come here to say there's no racism here in Australia. It is here. But as a person of color, like for those who does not know, when I say person of color, I mean someone that is not a native or someone that has a different skin tone. Because I don't want to be using the word black or white, that is because for some reason here in Australia, people find those two words offensive. They find it as a racist comment. Like if you say, oh, you're a black person or you're a white person, they find it offensive. So I won't be using those words. But if I say a person of color, I mean me. And if I say indigenous, I mean them. Okay. So as a person of color, where you choose to live in Australia plays a huge factor. I'm not going to say if you go to really remote areas, best believe you might even experience active racism, like racism that they'll tell you, oh, you go back to your country, or blah 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 blah, like those kind of words. However, I've never read or seen anywhere where someone is being unalived or someone is being, I don't know, for the worst things that can happen to you as a racist activity in Australia. I've never heard of those things. The most I've heard is somebody use like offensive words on you, the C word, the F word, the N words, and all those offensive words. I've heard that. And I've heard stories of people saying, oh, they weren't given a job because of their color, or they tried to apply for a high position and they didn't get that. I've heard all those things, but I myself, I haven't experienced all of those things, okay? And even for my husband, he's never experienced anything. We didn't have any issue getting a job and all that. It was just seamless. And if you followed my journey, you knew that I had a job even before coming to Australia, so I didn't have to hustle for all of those things. And I feel also your profession plays a role in that. But generally speaking, if you are a person of color looking to move to another country, please try as much as possible to remove that racism feeling in your heart. Okay, I know that it's hard, but as much as possible, try to play blind ears to it. It does help your mind. Okay, for example, you might just walk into the store and everybody starts staring at you and all that. You might feel somehow, it's normal, but don't overthink it. Sometimes they are just shocked to see someone that doesn't look like them. Look, I am telling you, because I live in Sydney and I can literally count the amount of people of color I've seen, especially Africans, especially Nigerian. I can literally count how many of them I have seen. Imagine if I go and live in Northern Territory. Okay, they might have been seeing people of color there, but for African with my hair and all that, it will be a shock to lots of people, you know. Or if I go really remote. And I will say this because they also come to our country. I know there was a time in my state where an Oyibo came to my state and the way all of us were staring at. I don't know, the way we do stare at them, we smile and we giggle, we are happy, like, you know, Oyibo, Oyibo, that kind of thing. But the way they look at us is like, they look, they stare. So it's very hard to say if they are actually staring at you with excitement or with surprise or with disgust, or it's just very hard to tell. So what I do is I just smile and look away, or just behave like nothing is happening. But with us, we are very open to our own happiness. You know, when you say, Oyibo, you fine, or you know, in Nigeria, like, this one Oyibo, no, let son touch am. You know, that kind of happiness we feel when we see them. But their own way of showing that this person looks different from us is quite different. So I mean, if you overthink it, you will never stay in a foreign country. So what I would advise you, one, please make sure you do your research on the exact location you'll be going to. It does matter, especially in Australia. I would also like to state that with the location of Australia, you know for a fact that there are not a lot of Africans here. If you want to compare it to the US, Canada, or the UK, you cannot even compare the number of people of color, like Africans here. Okay, so please look for where you see more Africans, or in big cities. When it's a big city, I would like to think that the people living in those parts of the cities, they are quite experienced, quite educated, they are more exposed to different kind of people, so they wouldn't even treat you differently, you know. But if you go really remote, you might struggle a bit to fit in before they finally accept you. That's if they ever accept you. Okay, and with children as well, I don't have any child, so it's very hard for me to even explain it from my point of view. But I've watched some few YouTubers complain about how their kids are being told, oh, your skin is different in school and all that. So it all depends on how you teach your children to say, look, your skin is beautiful, your hair is marvelous, you are gorgeous. Like, you just have to put those words in them. And also try to speak to the school teachers to always teach everyone that people are different and they have to accept it. It also still boils down to the exact location you live in. So if racism is something that is very important to you, it's very important, it's a very sensitive topic, but if you are very big on it and you have children you are very concerned about, I would say don't live in the rural areas here in Australia. Please try and stay in the cities. I know the cities are more expensive, but something has to give. Okay, something definitely has to give. So like I said, personally, I haven't experienced anything. Everybody I have come across here in Australia, they have been amazing, good, down to my work colleagues. Like I said, in my workplace, they are mostly Asians with like mixed people are there, and it's so amazing. Everybody shares their different opinion about things and we all learn together. So you see, it's not something I have experienced firsthand, so of course I will tell you, make your research as well and know exactly where you're going. It's even funny because even in my place of work, I was the only person of color. Okay, like not like person of color, like I was the only African, let me use that one, because actually I was the only African in my unit. Like, I work in the theaters, right, and our theater is quite big, but the whole theater, I was the only one until 2 months ago. I came to work, I changed my scrub, and I was coming out and I just saw a black hole. If you see the way I screamed, I was so happy. And I asked her, "Oh God, where are you from?" Like, out of happiness. And she said she is Ghanaian. I was just too happy. I even forgot to beef her about her jollof rice because of my happiness. And then she said, "Oh, she works here. That she's so happy to see me, and she's been on maternity leave. You know, this country, their maternity leave is up to 1 year. So she's been off for almost a year. That's why she's not met me, because I only just came, right? So she said, oh yeah, she's been off on maternity leave, that she's so happy that I'm here, so that she's been the only person of color for a long time, that she's just happy that I'm here as well. So you see, that happiness was just there. But generally, I never felt unsafe, or I've never felt isolated just because I was the only African there. All my teammates, they are just amazing. Okay, I've never had any issue. But yeah, this is my experience on racism here. Like I said, please do your research, because the exact location where you'll be going to in Australia would matter more than my own experience. I live in Sydney, and if you know, with Sydney is like one of the biggest cities, and it is very, very multicultural. If you use my own experience and go to somewhere very, very remote, or like somewhere not that developed, you might struggle a bit. And that is still might, because people here in Australia, they are very lovely, okay, and there are bad people everywhere, just put it at that. But when it comes to racism and all, you just have to be careful, make your research, and also pray, because at the end of the day, you can't be too careful. Okay, yeah, I hope this video has given you a little bit of insight and guide, even though I am not speaking exactly from telling you how bad it is or how good it is. Just me sharing my own opinion of what I've experienced and what I've observed. So yeah, let me know about your experience. If you live here in Australia, let me know what you think about racism in Australia in the comment section. I love to read from you as well. I know a lot of people would love to read from you. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Bye.